Glad to see you back home. So I want to tell you a story. There was an entity, a soul, that was in the ethers and getting ready to incarnate again, once again. And she remembered everything about her other lives, and she knew then she was waiting to go to the family that was going to receive her. And they were all anxious for this little girl. It would be their last child out of 6. But she's standing in there in line waiting to be handed her assignment. And she remembers that in a past life she had been a nun, and she was cloistered, and her name was Judah, Jutta. She remembered a lifetime where her name was Jude, another the name Judith, Judah, all of those. And the saint that was handing her her assignment said, well, you're going to love this, because this mom that's going to birth you wants to call you Judy. And sometimes she's going to call you Judy Ann. And so he was giving out assignments. He said, you're being born right now for a reason. The year was 1949, and the month was September, another 9, and the day was a 2/7, and that's another 9. He said, and there's a reason for all those 9s, and that is that it's going to be a reason for you to wake up. You're going to get to be 29, and you're going to start having glimmers of, I think I'm here for a reason. I can't remember. I don't know. I'm so embroiled in my daily life, I can't pull it in. You're going to get to 39, and you're going to have something tremendously painful that's going to happen, that's going to bring you to your knees, and you're going to start to remember, but it's not quite enough, because then you're going to forget again. Then you're going to get to 49, honey, and you're going to have something happen that's going to be so painful, you're going to wonder if you can even breathe anymore. But there's a reason for this. Because you see, when you wake up, you're going to be a totally different person. And you're going to be at exactly the right time when the world needs you. Because you see, going into the 2012, going into all this transformation and this change, we're going to need people with spiritual maturity. We're going to need people that have woken up to their true self, and that they can be a teacher of others. And he said, when you get to the 2020s to 2030, you're going to know exactly what your role is. And you're going to live it every day. So he handed her this role. He said, you're going to be a faith keeper. When everybody else loses their faith and they're fainting and falling out all around you for every different kind of reason, he said that's first going to start in 2001, because you're going to be the only person that you know that doesn't just fall into panic and anger and resentment and wanting to get back at everybody. That sounds pretty accurate. That sounds pretty much like what happened to her. And she really started waking up at that point. He said, in addition, you're going to be a bridge builder. Handed her this card. You're going to be a bridge builder. Did you know that? Not the typical bridges that you build, but you're going to be married to a man who comes from a family of physical bridge builders. And there he is. Indeed. Family that built the Golden Gate Bridge and some of the bigger suspension bridges in the country. My husband's family came from. But you're not going to be that kind of bridge builder, you see, because there's going to be a great divide of people. And we're going to need people that are spiritually mature enough when it comes to those times that you can fill in the gap. You can go between. When you see family members and friends and whomever hating each other because of the candidate they voted for, you're going to fill in the gap for that. You're going to be a negotiator. But that comes at a price too, because you've got to stay really prayed up, right? In order to do that, and in order to be a gap filler, you've really got to be strong. And you've got to remember who you are, and you've got to remember some of your qualities. Would you go to the next slide, please? And some of the things that we might measure success by are love. How deeply can you love? Inner, outer harmony, kindness, compassion, adventure, joy, laughter. All of it's important. It's important to laugh. Honesty, integrity, financial stability, that's important too. Did you know that's a spiritual trait, folks? Financial stability is important, and I know we don't talk about that much here, but that's very important because you can't do the work you're meant to do if you're just scraping by and not paying the rent each month. Next thing you know, you're going to be kicked out, aren't you? It's important. It's important in our spiritual maturity as well as in the world. All of the other things we would think of: humanity, empathy, family, gratitude, generosity. Forgiveness is huge. Forgive it. Whatever it is, forgive it. It's not worth losing your peace over. It really isn't. So there's another man, and his name was Martin Luther. And he lived in the 16th century. And he was a priest in the Roman Catholic Church. And he saw so much depravity from the top down, selling whatever, to get money. Priests telling the parishioners that if they paid him money, he would forgive their sins. Oh, come on. This went on all the time. This man, Martin Luther, he'd had enough. We all know when enough is enough, right? We're pretty sure about that. So he wrote down 98 treatises. He went and hammered them to the church door. And when he did that, he was thinking, yeah, this is probably a nail in my coffin. And for the rest of his life, he was excommunicated and considered a pariah. You probably know the rest of the story. This is where Protestantism came from. Instead of one church, the Christian church, then their Protestantism came about. And the Lutheran Church came from Martin Luther. And then Martin Luther King Jr., of course, was named after him. But what role would I say that Martin Luther had? I'd say that he was handed a card that said, you're going to be a change maker, big-time change maker. So I think that if we're talking about spiritual maturity, if we work on all of these attributes and we hone them and realize how important they are in our lives, we will at one point become spiritually mature, and we will become spiritually mature at a point when it's extremely important to share our gifts with the world. Okay? I know I was given the number 9, and one of the reasons is that whenever I see that number, it reminds me And I was given that number it would remind me who I am and where I came from and the true origins. I've never talked about this before. This is the first time I've ever spoken about it with anybody, ever. And I wondered a long time about my birth date, a 9 and then a 27. That's another 9. And then at one point, I looked and saw that it is the 270th day of the calendar. I'm thinking, how is that even possible? That's another 9. I mean, how? And the answer I received was, of course, I'm not any more unique than anyone else. It was just one of the ways I knew that I would wake up and know who I authentically was. That with each realization came a knowing of who I really am, the soul that I really am. And you are too. We're just living in illusion right here in these bodies. We're living in illusion, and who we really are is our soul. There's another story I want to tell you, and it's going to be a lot more down to earth. You're going to be able to relate to this. Anybody, I don't want to get next to that microphone. I wouldn't give this little germ to anybody. Anybody ever heard of the book titled The Greatest Salesman in the World by Og Mandino? Yeah. Anybody read it? Yeah. Great little book. The title, though, is misleading because it's not the greatest salesman in the world, actually. It's by using these skills and these scrolls, these 10 principles that were written on them, it is how to grow spiritually till you find spiritual maturity. So this little man, Hafiz, he remembered that when he was really young, he was poor and he was in poverty, and he saw this beautiful young woman and he wanted to marry her. But he knew the only way he could marry her was if he grew great wealth. So he went to his master and he said, "Could you help me? Could I have another job besides the menial job I have now, and have a job where I could grow and be successful and gain some wealth?" And so the master said, "Well, certainly you can be a salesperson." So he gave him a blanket to sell. So he went out in the marketplace and he was not successful. And he finally saw a young couple that had a baby, and the baby was cold, and so that he gave the blanket to the couple to put over their baby to keep it warm. So he goes back to his master and he says, "Well, I certainly wasn't successful today. I'm going to have to learn a different way. If you're willing to teach me, would you teach me how to be a good salesperson?" And the master says, "Certainly I will." He says, "As a matter of fact, I have 10 scrolls here, and we're going to talk about those." Scroll number 1, I will form good habits. Experiences can be comparable to fashion, can't they? They're in fashion now, but they'll go out of fashion next year. And the thing that is unique to you is your ability to stay on target, on goal. So form good habits. I can't remember how long it takes to form a habit. Did they say 21 days or something like that? Form good habits. If you say you're going to start your day with prayer, do that. If you say you're going to do without sugar, do that. That one's harder, especially when Tony brings in donuts on a morning when you're feeling really vulnerable. And you might eat a half of one. It makes you wonder, doesn't it? A big part of the market is in cookbooks, and now a big part of the book market is in dieting. So it just, I don't know. We humans don't make much sense. Only principles endure. Scroll number 2, greet each day with love in your heart. Can you do that? Yes, ma'am. I know Sean does. Yes. Yes, ma'am. Greet each day with love in your heart. Scroll number 3, I will persist until I succeed. Each misfortune I encounter will carry in it the seed of tomorrow's good luck. How about that? You know, I've told you so many times I walk in the morning, and yes, I got wet this morning. Even with this cold, I went and walked. I shouldn't have, but I enjoy it so much, and I get rewarded all the time. I see coins everywhere. They're just coins on my path, and I just love it. I call it my pennies from heaven, and sometimes it's nickels, dimes, quarters, $5 bill, $20 bill. I mean, it's because I notice. I see these things. Anyway, I will persist until I succeed. Each misfortune I encounter will carry within it the seed of tomorrow's good luck. And did you know, speaking of walking, I'm going to tell you something else that I've never told the public before. I was diagnosed with an autoimmune disease which has caused me great distress since my midlife, not so much when I was younger, some it did. I had such severe nerve damage in both legs. 2 major nerves were essentially destroyed in both legs. The rheumatologist told me, I said, what am I supposed to do now? She said, I've never had a patient that had that much nerve damage. Never. I don't know what you're going to do. I said, well, I like to walk in the morning. I don't know. I asked her, will that hurt my feet? I don't know, she said. I said, well, I'm going to walk anyway. And at that point, the nerve pain was so severe. If anybody's had nerve pain, you know what I'm talking about. It makes you think the bone is the bone instead of the nerve. And so that was both legs. I lived with that for quite a while till they have some of these miracle drugs now that will treat nerve pain. But okay, so I'm a demonstration of somebody that got a diagnosis that many years ago, and I could have gone and gotten a handicap sticker if I'd want it, or tag. Are you kidding me? I don't want one. I don't want one. I'm not taking one if you try to give it to me. Wouldn't have it. But I walk every day. And mostly you won't notice about the nerve damage because it just affects a little bit of the motor damage. And you might see me stumble now and then with my left foot. But basically, nobody's ever known except my family, a few friends. Live each day as if it were your last. That's what I do. Master your emotions. I usually do until I find everybody else's emotions around me are pretty heavy. And that sometimes will get me, and I just need to stay prayed up a little bit more. I may end up with a cold if I do that. The power of laughter. Laugh, 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 laugh. Whatever's going on in your life, laugh anyway. Be joyful. Tell a joke. Tell a silly joke. Multiply your value every single day. Do you do that? Do you know how valuable you are to the world? Think about it. Take that list that we were talking about earlier. What role do you think was handed to you when you were standing there at the pearly gates? getting ready to come back into this lifetime, what role were you given? You were given one just as unique and as important as the one I have, guaranteed. Each and every one of you. What's your role? Think about that every morning. And then the ninth scroll, it said, all is worthless without action. What does that mean? That means if you're looking for somebody to live with, but you're not willing to even go out on the front porch, quit bitching and complaining, right? And moaning. If you complain about having no money, but you're not willing to go out and get a job, you better have a talk with yourself. And that's just the truth. We each should be responsible for ourselves, unless we came into this lifetime with a disability. And the reason we came in that way was so that our parents or whomever around us would have the lesson too. There is that. But basically, we adults need to be responsible and give up that learned helplessness sometimes I see people have. And pray to God for guidance. Every single day, pray to God for guidance. Be kind, be loving, be gentle, be forgiving, be all that you can be.